we can like
Please.
Vini, you can bring Vanya, and that will count as
Oh,
in,
of course. Will
and
be a
that will count
pleasure.
me because I suggested.
Yeah, certainly. Well, guys, let's kick off this thing, or
Kick off.
we wait a little bit. Water to be with us.
You
I
want to
don't
start
know.
with a quick check-in, maybe?
Yeah, let's start with a quick check-in. So, Florian, please, man.
Okay. So very good week. I have to confess that like our last meeting was extremely productive for me, like personally, like just like the exchange that we had uh, kept me thinking a lot, and I have to say that it was extremely. I was very grateful for the connection that we had, and for like the. I felt that we like what happened, and like the ideas and the way this conversation was organized answered to lots of things that I was looking for long. So um, I wanted to start that meeting by being extremely grateful for that, and for this connection, and grateful for the diversity actually of background that are here in this room and that were in the room last week. Yeah, so it's actually unlocking, like it was kind of part of one last piece that was missing in a tough equation. So, and it ended up actually being already like fertile in a way that with Danilo, Vinicius, we started a dynamic that is actually connected to this wealth transfer model that actually we'll be sharing more today, but I think it's going in the right direction. So I'm coming pretty energized for this meeting, and I give it to Hugo.
Thank you. So glad to be here again, and I don't know if this one you want also to see a vortex, or if we are okay like this. And
I think that you make up you make your check-in, then everyone makes your check-in, and then we go to Seven Vortex. I think it's going to be nice.
Okay. I didn't want to impose the dynamic the Tibi want. Yeah. So I think I really love this diversity of backgrounds, and especially like coming from different, not just countries and languages and ideas, but also like technical perspectives into what we are doing. We find a very fertile soil in between us. And for today, I have a lot in mind, water, because in Mexico City specifically is about to get into time of a lot of scarcity. It's a less raining season for the last 30 years. So in my mind was really, what are we talking about? Like wealth transfer is fine, but when we go specifically to the elements that are the conducive line of life, which is water, then I think it could bring a different ingredient to the conversation, because maybe we use the technology towards a different direction that is not just, focused on when you see wealth is a broader aspect, but if we start nailing something around water, and then from there, I think it could be very, very interesting also, because we need something that helps us to understand that without water we cannot live, whether we have Bitcoin or blockchain or graph database. Whatever technological layer we can put on the top, it is useless if we miss the focus of what we need to do. So I don't know who wants to go afterwards. So thank you.
You can say anybody.
Danilo.
Well,
Yeah.
let's welcome welcome Haddad. Haddad, welcome, my friend. Very welcome for the second touchdown here at Wealth Transfer. Welcome. We're making a check-in now.
Thank you, Vinicius. Hello, everyone. Aloha. I'm Luis Haddad from Cambiatus. I'm feeling well. I'm here in Brazil, and curious to see what this, how this meeting unfolds, and happy to meet everyone.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Hugo about the water aspect, and I think it's real wealth is water, land, and people. Land, like in the sense of to have food or nature, things that help us survive. A computer will not help us survive in the desert, right? And the biggest the highest technology will not help us survive in the desert. So I think redefinition of wealth is extremely important for us to know what we want to distribute. But today we are in this system, or in an illusion where there is this thing called money that it is the medium of all this. So it's tradable to all this. So it is almost as a synthetic asset for all these things, right? It's like because it has a trading power, is that if this money represents that possibility, that's why it had value. But the moment that it cannot be exchanged anymore, you won't have value. But I think this is like something really deeper, or in a more further aspect, but that we should have this perspective. For now, what I'm trying to do is, okay, what can we do today or tomorrow or this week or next week, right? And one thing that me, Florian, and Vinny were working on, it's a DAP lab that we call Igarata Labs. And in Igarata, there's a lot of water. And the idea is to disseminate these other types of wealth. Yesterday, my friend Gava came here, and we were talking about how wealth, like we were talking about in the sense of US dollar specifically, like in money specifically, how it flows in the planet. And actually, if you see, money doesn't get burned, it doesn't disappear. Like US dollar does not disappear. It's like you don't see money burning. Like nobody burns US dollar. But why does it feel that we're having less and less US dollar as far as pandemics? And why does it feel that people are getting poorer when actually money is being printed to the market? It's because there are some points of accumulation. So imagine we were saying, like, imagine this is Earth and there is this flow of water, right? And the reason why we are feeling that we are losing money, or money disappear, it's basically because it's accumulating in some place. And so it's basically a trade-off between flow and accumulation of money, because money is not disappearing. US dollar is not disappearing. It's the contrary. US dollar is being printed every day, every month, every second. There's a printer taking out more and more US dollar. So this idea of scarcity is coming because of accumulation. So we were discussing how wealth transfer is about allowing this to flow for, to flow more to the system overall. And I think in Igarata Labs, we're trying to build a model where we can achieve that. We can achieve that. And we were trying to discuss some practical ways to do that. And yeah, then we can go with a lot more details in so many things we talked about. But I think that's the overall view of what, at least, what I am thinking about, what we have discussed these last days, and how I see, because once we have a broader perspective and we try to, we understand things as they are, it is easier to, or at least less challenging to find a solution and to take and to make decisions. If later you guys are interested, I can explain some things that some nice talks I had with Kava yesterday. But for now, I think that's it.
Patrick?
Sure. Yeah. I'm glad that a lot of you guys are bringing the energy, because I've had my head in other places this past week, but this is definitely, I was kind of thinking over this past week of kind of what's exciting about this project for me, and it's really kind of more grounded in just my ignorance and just kind of the feeling that I'm so unfamiliar with this territory that it feels like it's really kind of filling in what has always existed as kind of this just like this fog, right, in the landscape. The kind of economic dynamics of what's happening in these peer-to-peer spaces has always been interesting to me, but in terms of really kind of understanding some of the actual concrete solutions and technologies that are kind of emerging to address these issues has always been kind of inaccessible, particularly because just the blockchain technology is a bit difficult for me to wrap my head around. So I'm just excited. Last week was a lot of new things. I'm really still excited to kind of see this, how we're modeling this and kind of potential applications to some of the other projects I'm working on. So there's definitely a lot here. I feel like I'm getting a lot out of it and looking forward to kind of seeing where things go. I did want to just kind of flag one thing while I've got the floor, that I visited the graph from last week and tried to add some links, and it looked like there may have been some kind of permissions issues with actually making those kinds of edits to the node. So I was just wondering, maybe Hugo could address that at some point, whether or not there's some kind of specific procedure, or, if I need to log in or something to actually start adding those links. But excited to hear what comes next.
I send, just answering that technical question quick, I send the maps or the graph or the vortex, it's the same, to Florian. So he's now holding the let's say the owner of this one. And the way of collaboration as it works is you have to have a user, so you have to do a login. It has to be set up collaborative. And since he is the owner, then you can just add bubbles, but not links into the bubbles.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, or bubbles or lines, but we don't have all these like different roles. We just have owner and collaborator, and the collaborator can add connections or nodes.
Great. Before we hear Tibi, I want just to make one remark that I find interesting. You see, from the first touchdown to the second touchdown, me, Florian, and Danilo, we felt impelled to get the talk and do the walk, right? So why? Because this map visualization thing that Hugo magically maps out when we're here having this flow of conversation, of interactivity, it really blows the mind of anyone. So this is really a tool that speaks to complexity, speaks to transition, and as I said in the trading of our emails, what we're doing here is not only talking about it, not only researching about it, but we're actually doing it. So, Patrick, feel free to hop in, right? Because as Tibi too, because this is the thing. We have to make it happen. We have to experiment. We have to make this a real experience for everyone here, and not only here, but but all the other people that we are all interconnected now, that resonates in the same empathic frequency, that we know that will form, let's say, this ecology of of of, of proposed DAOs that are making the transition happen really in various ways. So this is the remark that I want to make. And Tibi, it's with you now, and with your cup of coffee, of course. You're mute, man. You're mute. Tibi, you're mute.
Yes, yes. I can add something here. Yeah, so Hugo started it with water. What I understand there is resources and natural resources. And that drives me to something that we've been thinking about a lot in Sensorica. How do we gain access to resources, and how do we, what are the rules or the governance around the use of resources? And actually, and obviously this leads you to the notion of property, right? So when we talk about capitalism, in this discussion here, we talk about wealth, and I sense that there is always the idea of new wealth, or wealth in a new way of seeing it, as opposed to capitalism somewhere. So there is this kind of antithetic relationship with capitalism and wealth. And it's related to the notion of property, heavily related to the notion of property. So, you know, even if it is a natural resource like water, the notion of natural of property still goes into the play, because, you know, natural resources sometimes they are artificially made scarce, and sometimes are just enclosed by some entities. And even if you live in an area where there is no water, like the desert, for example, because it doesn't fall from the sky, or it is not present in the ground, there are countries around that do have water that falls from the sky, right? So how do we gain access to resources that we produce, or natural resources? How do these resources get distributed, not just in our vicinity, in our local community, but also globally, right? And what is the governance that we put around the use of these resources? Like, can anybody abuse some resources, like use them carelessly, you know, or should we apply some care to it, you know, because some other people need it? And it's funny, because a few weeks ago I wrote a post, I wrote a blog about commons that you guys could read and contribute to this idea, because, you know, when I write something, it's just the beginning of a thought process, right? But essentially it says that, you know, it says that commons in the past could only exist in a very simple form, and today technology allows us to deal with more complex forms of commons. Okay, and so there is this idea between simple commons and complex commons, and if you take one resource in particular, let's say water or land, agricultural land, or, you know, you can treat it as commons. And some of these, in some places, these resources do exist under the commons property regime. In other regions, these resources exist under a private property regime. In some regions, this resource exists as a public, or in some contexts, as a public, in the public property regime. The question is, why have these property regimes dominated in these particular contexts for that particular resource? Okay, and can we just imagine applying any property regime to any resource in any context? Okay, so my thought there is, well, technology actually helps us take what I call complex commons that cannot, complex resources that cannot exist as commons because it's too complex to manage. Okay, with technology we can manage that. So you know, I don't know if I make myself clear because I was not prepared to talk about this, but if something gets scarce and we can make better use of it by sharing it rather than hoarding or putting into the market and treat it as a commodity, if we can make better use, because that resource, you know, there is not enough, so might as well, you know, use it carefully and sharing it among ourselves. Then can we actually do that with that particular resource? You know, and sometimes the answer is straightforward no, because that resource has very complex behavior and we're not able as humans to manage it collectively. Okay, and the idea here is that, oh, wait a sec, because now with the new technology, that resource that exhibits complex behavior, oh, now we can manage it. Today we can start to manage it, you know. So we can think about wealth in this new way, which is, well, there is a bunch of resources out there that are maybe hoarded or treated as commodities, so they don't flow effectively to people that really need them. I mean, there's water in Mexico, right? There's probably enough water in Mexico. It just doesn't get transported, doesn't flow to the people in need. Okay, and there is water, you know, neighboring countries of Mexico have water, you know, but maybe there is no system in place to distribute it properly because it's treated as a would be treated as a commodity, you know. It would be not treated as a commons for the region. Okay, yeah. So when we think about wealth, it's also related to the distribution of that thing. Okay, so if we think that a natural resource is wealth, like water, you know, or land, it's part of what we call wealth. How does it get to those to people? How is it distributed? It's wealth for those who have it, but those who don't have it, you know, it's like it's a sort of they're impoverished because they cannot access that particular type of wealth, right? And if we could treat it as commons, or if we could treat it as a shared asset, then we can change that situation. Is that clear?
Let me try to understand. What you mean is that like all these comments are potential shareable, like things that can be shared, but some of them are complex in terms of use, in terms of like how we can connect them together, in terms of distribution.
No, it's like resources. If you take resources, they can exhibit very simple behavior or very complex behavior. Okay, when we talk about commons, in order for a resource to be used under commons property regime, you need governance. So you need people to agree how they extract from that commons and how they replenish it. Otherwise, you will go and just otherwise the situation will lead to what we call the tragedy of the commons. So let's say, for example, you have a pasture, which is a classical example, and the villagers, they treat it as commons. Nobody owns it, but anybody can take the animals to that pasture. Okay, the tragedy of the commons says that, well, if there is no rule, the people will just use it and not let the land regrow the grass. Okay, so they will exhaust the commons if there is no rule. Okay, but the villagers can say, well, okay, so we're going to give ourselves some rules. You can only put your animals there for a certain period of time, and from this and this month, nobody brings the animals there. We give the land, the possibility to regrow the grass, okay, and replenish that commons. So pastures as commons have existed and do exist today, because as a resource, it has a very simple behavior, okay? Meaning that all the villagers see this piece of land in the same way for for the quantity of grass they give to these animals. So they use the same metric, okay? And it's very simple for them to arrive at a rule or a governance, because it's only with respect to this particular use that they make of it, okay? And the metric is very simple. It's okay, how long is the grass? Okay, there is no more grass, so stop going there. Just leave it to replenish itself, right? But sometimes the resource is extremely complex. Suppose, for example, that you have a piece of wild land in the middle of Sao Paulo, and it is like a park. Okay, now many people can make many uses of that park. Some people can think about cutting wood and selling it. Some people think about making some animation and some urban activities, some parties. Okay, other people might want to I don't know, commercialize some parts of it and open some restaurants and have a lake with bicycles and whatever. Okay, so different people can make. Some people want to use it just for sports and outdoors and just jogging and breathe some fresh air without listening to some music. So what you have here, you have a commons that have a more complex behavior, because people have different ways of interacting with it, and for different people this has different type of value. Okay, and so it makes it much more complex for people to reach an agreement how to use it so that everybody can use it equally. Okay, so if I'm the guy that wants to cut the trees and sell it, okay, my tendency is to cut the whole forest. But that's not good for the guy that wants to maybe organize some natural activities, because they need the trees for clean air. So we enter in conflict. Okay, and maybe it's not, maybe that guy that wants to organize some activities like some I don't know, some events, maybe they make too much noise. So how can you know what I'm saying? So this is complex, because now the metrics are very complex. It's not just what is the length of the grass. Okay, we all see it the same way. We need it to feed the animals, so there is only one metric, and then we can agree on a rule. Yes, there is many metrics: how many trees we have, how much room we have to bring people in to make the activities, how much kilometers I have to run. You know, there's different metrics, right? Is the air nice and cool? Maybe you know, how does this park affect the city with the pollution? Maybe it absorbs some pollution and generates some oxygen and so on and so forth. So usually to manage that complexity, cities have said, okay, guys, yes.
Just one thing, man. I agree totally. I know profoundly the tragedy of the commons. This is something has been in my life for such time to dealing with it. But you see, this framework of viewing this part of Flores, let's see, in the middle of the São Paulo urbanity, let's say, we're seeing this, right, with the actual framework that we have, right? And the actual framework that we have as societies, as civilizations, is public and private related, or public-private related. So when we talk about the commons, we talk with these lenses of what is public and what is private, right? And what is the relation between public and private? We actually don't see this in the very commons, profound way of things, right? And if we switch the lenses and we look through the lenses of complexity and the natural commons that is all around us in a very symbiotic way, in a very biomimicry way, let's say, we can switch, we can really switch the understanding of it. We don't go to this place to negotiate it piece by beat and to generate all types of conflicts because, well, I want to jog, man. Well, I want to put down the trees. That's not it. Okay, this is the actual way of seeing it as societies, right? But if we're talking here we're talking here about transition, we're talking here about making emerging a new type of conscious, let's say, that conscious that is very synced with regeneration as a whole, and we are just learning. We're just learning again, let's say, because we were creatures embedded in nature as well eons ago, right? As species, we are making the step to relearn, let's say, relearn to be complex as well, and not to be so systematic oriented as we became, right? So this is the point that I'm making, man, because as you know, my life itself, I had early on, I have a very systematic approach to everything. I want to negotiate everything as a guy related to marketing and things like that in last century. But when I dived in this, I let it go and just flow in between the interactions to see what emerges as a commons. You can actually feel the commons, right? As we are feeling here the commons, as we are speaking in this flow of conversation. So this is the only observation, my friend, that I make. I understand totally what you're saying, but I think that we're talking here is something related to a new emerging conscious that already is ancient and it's new at the same, both at the same time. So that's the remark that I make in what you're just sharing with us.
I think that I'm gonna change my name in 1 second. As Vini says, like, and how I feel like, in a way, it will be humanly impossible for a person or even for a group of 6 persons to find a way to the perfect solution for distributing the like the all the possible assets that exist. And what I've experienced with Vini is that what works in complexity, the basic layer of a healthy ecosystem in complexity is about trust. It's about knowing that, okay, I'll take care of this aspect of this of the ecosystem, having the perspective of the ecosystem, but at the same time, I don't have to worry about the other aspect of the ecosystem because I trust someone else. Like, so I'm taking care of the land and I know someone is taking care of the water. If I try to take care of the land, the water, the air and everything, I don't know if I will, if it's humanly possible, unless I'm a super expert, super genius, but that's not my case. Or so if I try to see all this, I don't think it's I would be able to possible to find any practical actionable task. And so what we are doing in Taodao is we are building the basic layer of, okay, how we can trust so that people can self-organize in a way, because trying to build rules or trying to build methods, it's basically to bring safety to the ecosystem. And bringing safety to the ecosystem is basically saying, okay, we don't have trust. Like, you don't try to make rules of how your, okay, some people do, some people don't, but you have, let's say you have a relationship with your mother. You don't have a rule, okay, mother, we talk at this time, we talk at that time, you only tell me a problem if this happens, or like you don't have all these rules. Why? Because you trust her, you know. So trying to model how each aspect will function. Um, it's humanly impossible. So the solution for what I've been seeing is, okay, I have these people and I trust these people and let them model that. And but the thing is that we all have the perspective of the global scale. Um, and yeah, that's just my perspective of when hearing about, okay, how do we do this, how do we do that, how I think it's more about, okay, how do we involve the right people for that, how do we involve the right um like, you know, how can we make things communicate, and how can we make things flow and not get stuck in any specific part, be it in water, be it in um, knowledge, be it in monetary funds. At least that's what I've been reflecting on while hearing Tiberius.
So if we go back to the example of water, suppose that because my head goes always in the practical way. Suppose that tomorrow there is very little water in Mexico, and what we could expect with high probability is the government to kick in and declare a national emergency. It's like with the virus. Usually, it's the governments that kick in and take control of the situation. So in that case, what is also highly probable is that the company declares water as a matter of public safety, okay, and national security, and treat it as a public good, meaning the government oversees the management and the distribution of water. It's like with the vaccines and the COVID, right? The government kicks in, declares national emergency, a public health emergency, and then they take over the market for the distribution of vaccines, let's say, okay? Instead of having market mechanisms, supply and demand, and people buy the vaccines themselves and this and that, you know, the government kicks in and makes sure that this thing gets distributed fast. Okay, so this would happen with the water too. Okay, now the question that I have, okay, is what is our approach when it comes to distribution of scarce resources? Okay, so treating it as a public good and have the government run the situation, it's like saying, well, let's apply an industrial approach to a complex problem, because the government is going to come with a bunch of specialists, like they did with the COVID, and they're going to try to analyze this very complex problem, which it's not analyzable because it's complex. Analyzing means getting something and cutting into small pieces and then study every piece in particular and see how they connect. But complexity doesn't work like that. We cannot cut complexity into small pieces and say, okay, I'm going to address this little piece here and this little piece there, because it's a whole system, right? So having the government addressing a complex problem or managing a complex resource, it leads to failure, and we see that with COVID. You know, they try to address this, and then they try to fix something here, and they break something else on the other side, because the government is an industrial approach. It's an analytical approach to a problem rather than being a complexity approach to a complex situation. And so this is what you get when you have something managed centrally, because it is treated as a how should I say, as a public good managed by the government, by the state. Just a second, so I'll finish my thought. Then the other way is to say, the capitalist way is to say, let the market sort it out. Let just the market sort it out. Whoever has water, whoever sits on top of the water, the price will go up, and they will deploy their resources to bring it to the people that need, and people that need will pay the price for it. So you can have water coming from Panama, you can have water coming from the United States. You know, the market will solve this out. But we know that this can lead to, you know, first of all, can be slow, and second of all, can lead to inequalities. Okay, because now a necessity, getting access to a necessity requires money, and some people that need it don't have. Okay, and that's a necessity for life. So we know that the market cannot efficiently solve this problem. So if we treat it as a commodity and as a private property, we may run into problems. So now the other practical solution is to say, well, why don't we let the network, which is a complex entity, approach the problem in a complex way? And this is the commons, that's the commons way of approaching the thing, saying, treat it as a commons and put a body of governance on top of that, and maybe different actors in this ecosystem, they will be able to reach some type of consensus, okay, and manage this as a shared resource. Okay, so this is a third approach, which is not public and it's not private. Okay, it's commons. You see, and so why is water complex? Because some people might want to use it to drink. Some people might want to use it to water the plants and grow food. Some people might want to use it to wash stuff, wash their cars and wash the clothing and stuff like that. Some people might want to use it for cooling buildings. Okay, and so you see, water is a complex resource because people make different uses of it, and then you're going to have a fight between those that want to use it for agriculture and those that want to drink it and those that want to wash their cars. So it's very easy for the government to kick in and say, okay, guys, stop fighting. I'm going to treat it as an emergency. Water for now is a public good, and we're going to manage the distribution. Okay, so we abolish the market and kick in and just make it simple. Just let's make it simple. The problem is that then somebody will come and say, yeah, but I have a farm and my chickens are dying. Okay, give him some more water. So with the government, with that centralized way of processing, you will have mistakes and disasters. We know that. But it's very simple to manage. It's like nobody's fighting anymore. We don't waste time fighting. The government takes care of it, and it will make mistakes and it will, be corrupt. We know that. But at least things, they start flowing instead of being blocked, right, by this guy. So that's what I mean by commons.
Yeah, I'm totally aligned with
Yeah,
that.
that's great, because what you just said is totally aligned with what we're just doing here, right?
Can I add something?
And guys,
Yeah. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
So I think that we really represent the Toys for Boys sector here, being just men, as Florian was pointing out. And this also brings interesting responsibility. So usually we should be diversified in gender as well, but I do like the idea of, in this case, being just guys, because most of the responsibilities that is happening in economics and in power talk to us. So I do appreciate the fact that we are all guys here, trying to be nice with each other, not just fighting, but trying to contribute from different cultures. Then my next reflection goes more into Tiberius' input, because you keep talking about human way of controlling and human governance, which I completely agree that we live in this part. But when you think in an ecosystemic perspective and in a nature perspective, water belongs to everyone. And it seems that as a species, we have lost the trust of the other species in humanity. In Montana, when I was there, I met a family of deers. And my sensation, it was that now deers, they need to go out by night because they are hiding from humans. Otherwise, we just kill them. And they were having kids, just like me at that moment. So I was very touched by this family of deers, because I said, well, what does make me different and more relevant, that I can use resources at my own will? So I think these functional uses of things, they should be, the commons should be including also nature as an overarching architecture of whatever we're doing. And if we live in a healthy ecosystem, that means that we have better air for everyone, better food, like organic food, top quality air, top quality water. And this is something that, because we became so human-centered, we are losing in civilized countries. And even worse, in developing countries, we like to become developed, which is nothing else than pollutant and money-based. Also, we need to understand how, for example, the Cogis in the Sierra Nevada in Colombia, they are acknowledging that water is the most important resource of life. So they make pagamentos or tributes to water in the way that they understand that energy and spirituality is also important, as we can see from Japanese scientists with intention in water and how it changes its structure. So whenever we think about a resource in governance, we like to make some dams, for example, in terms of water. And that stops the whole flow of life in the region. Mexico City, you are totally right with the functional uses and the government, and this is exactly how it works. What I like here is that we are open to change a little bit of paradigm, and it is not just a closed discussion. So I really appreciate that. What I see in Mexico City is that it used to be a sacred valley. And so we have lots of water coming from the rain, but our technology is making us mix the water, the clean water, with the dirty water. And we are not just extracting water from the soil, but not able to capture enough water from the sky, but polluting water into the rivers. So all at the same rate of destruction that we are very good at doing. Some cultures, that developed cultures, and the same happens in Mexico City. If you see Mexico City as more developed than other regions in Mexico City, we are very good at building killing machines of many different things. So when I think about economics, I cannot see a small relationship with military and wars. And I see the correlation also between the willingness to dominate and destroying nature by doing it, because we set up the rules in terms of human perspective. And I agree with you, Tiberius, with the simplicity of nature. Like, everyone is doing its own job. And if we focus on this, even if we focus in our religions, and if we behave in the best way that our religions teach us, we'll be actually taking care of each other, and maybe including other life beings. But to me, it sounds now like it is a time also to free nature, not just to free ourselves, but how can we ensure that in the governance, we're going to give the rights to nature and not just to other humans and indigenous people on their own? Because, as I think I said last time, but I think we're committing the same mistake on trees, because we don't understand them. We believe that they are stupid until we destroy the whole Amazonia. And then we will say, oh, actually, they did have a language. And like, we kill Incas, we kill Aztecs. Oh, yes, well, they were not so stupid. Actually, their language holds so many words as English. So, well, now it's too late. Now we just have stones to talk to, because we burned all the books that they built it. And I think we're doing exactly the same kind of culture depletion with nature. And that is related to governance and to the way that we govern. So how to use technology, for me, it's a big question that is not degenerative, that it holds a different intention, and that helps us to collaborate so we can build trust, but not just amongst us. And I think it is in the interest of everyone to keep water alive, because if water is alive and healthy, then the rest of the things, water is a leverage point. Different than oil, for example, as we think that oil is the most important element for energy now. When are we going to arrive to understand that water is more important?
I think it's amazing because what you say is just like going from agent centric to community centric to actually being like nature centric with us as part of it and not us as like the central point. So it's what I was just like thinking is just like it's to make nature part of the governance. It can go through observation because maybe they are voting but we are just not listening. And it can be maybe through some electrical ways. I don't know. It's kind of like I've never thought of including nature in the governance. I think it's very cool. But yeah, in which way and how I don't know. But it's interesting in terms of the direction that.
Right now, for example, the incentives of the market, it is about maximization. And maximization is to go as far as you can in a specific resource. Nature works towards optimization. So if you work towards optimization, then you will have already a starting point. How can we use technology in a peer-to-peer basis to enhance and to have healthier networks that functions as ecosystems? So they can self-regulate in many ways. But I think that is the challenge of technology right now. And this is exactly why I started with 7 Vortex, because I do know graph database and I understand the power of a graph behind all these kind of networks. But if the intention it is not there in technology, and you are not willing to understand the market in a way as nature does, then it's gonna be really hard. I mean, it is a war, as the UN, it's not the CEO, but the director or the UN chief stated, we are having a war against nature. And from this perspective, it is because we are not aligned with the rules of the game. We are creating our own rules and saying, these are my rules, guys, so do whatever you want. I'm gonna follow my own rules. But it happens to be that we just arrived to the party. The party was going already for 3.8 billion years. So what if we ask to the guys that have been partying here forever, how to make a better party of these kind of things? And this is where nature becomes an asset, because technology could help us to create knowledge around nature, which is not just value. Like when you cut forests, at least here, it was just a matter of time and money. How much you have to pay to the people that is cutting it, how many liters of oil or whatever is getting there, energy to cut it. But they never thought about the functionality. So in the polder in the Netherlands, they cut 6,000 trees just in 3 days. I was just trying to stop it as they like here to stop things in the Amazon, right? I just came here and I say, well, this is not right, guys. So please just don't do it. They went to the governance, and before the 5 days of the European Union getting there, they cut 6,000 trees or 4,000 trees that day in 3 days. So there was no possibility of there was no more materiality of the law because there were no more trees. So we proved to be really efficient and maximize everything. But how to include these rules? And that's why I like the life principles in biomimicry, because they come from biology. They don't come from a market perspective. And this is what Dana brought you in her conversation. But by following this criteria, then we are closely aligned to whatever the rules of the context are. So what if we can create technology that helps us to evolve and survive? What if the technology can help us to be locally attuned and responsive? What if make us material and energy efficient? So these kind of things are super interesting for a technological perspective in terms of design. And the intention, at least in biomimicry, is about creating conditions conducive to life. And I think that's a game changer, because I couldn't see it again in a different way. I say, well, if I'm creating something that kills someone else, whether it's a tree or something, I know that I have to kill for eating, so I'm not naive. But if it's in my hands, I should be creating something that is related to life and regeneration and positive vectors and positive impact, trusting in between each other, making the difference, trusting each other. It is really tough, I think, but I really appreciate the fact that at least we are listening each other here and trying to make sense of this complexity that has been very complicated rather than complex.
Yeah, we're trying to get a better grip of this perception that you enhance so beautifully and so vividly for us, Hugo. And because I think that each one of us here has a sense of it, right? But not so well put it in words. Let's say you transmit it in a such profound way that it's incredible. Because of course you already are very embedded, right? You embedded the nature of ourselves, the better nature, let's say, or the better nature of ourselves related to the nature of this planet, to the complexity of the nature of this planet, in your way of living, not only your way of working, right? So that's why you put it so well, and it became so blatantly clear for all of us. And the thing is that what we're trying to do here is really to walk the talk, right? And when I put it in our emails that we're doing this step-by-step thing to understand ourselves as decentralized efforts, decentralized initiatives, to not to read off, but to deprogram the understanding that everything has to come through the lenses of our species, right? And to understand that we are one of the millions of species of this planet, and we have to re-understand ourselves to balance, not only to balance, but to be in tune, right? Sync with all this, with all this 3.8 billion and 4 billion years of how life has been created and creating itself and evolving itself on this planet. That's why we're here, right? And in this sense, when I put the word ecology and ecology of DAOs, I was really thinking in this sense that you just shared, Hugo, that let's co-create, but not only co-create in let's say in conceptual terms, but in practical steps or experiences or explorations, this footprint or this imprint, right? And in a sense of the type of wealth transfer that we're talking here about, right? So when I say let's craft this ecology of DAOs, what I'm trying to say is what you just lent to us in a so profound way. Thanks a lot, my friend. That was very, very good, very good.
Thanks to you. And I think my thought when I started this conversation, and then I leave the space for everyone, is how to use this technology and this approach from peer to peer to actually make this thing happen. Because I think you have in between your hands something unique, which is part of our current reality. So we do have a nice technology to make a difference. I think we need to co-evolve in a way that I don't still know or understand. But if we can address the issue of water and having just this simple rule that water is life, and then we need to take care of before it becomes commodity everywhere in the world, we have a small window to actually being able to make a difference. And this is what peer-to-peer, water, in my mind, Mexico City, or whatever it is, it just triggers something different from last week to this one. So you might have different ideas because now we can move into your domain, right? Like more technologically talking and peer-to-peer basis. How we can create an ecology of DAOs that allows us to put the value of water in place.
Yeah, and I like very much the fact that you actually introduced that as the first like way of thinking wealth, just because it connected to something so real. So I think it's when we are talking about Igarata Lab, Igarata actually it's fun because it's a river, like it's connected directly to water, right? The things are like how we can actually take that and actually putting this into practice, connecting and having like projects that are connecting very, very deeply into like those real world problem and real resources issues. Not to become just like a nice technological like experiment. It needs to be extremely concrete. So and actually like I want to like bringing it back to the, because I like to make things like pragmatic in the end, and like there is actually an input, and like we can like they will start having like emerging forms of realization based on this conversation and this interaction. And I think one of the key things that I kept from our last conversation was the region map, like how we can map the project connecting to this peer-to-peer economy in a map where we are like adding to it the right elements. So you added one that is like the connection with nature, like all the different elements, governance, like all the best practices that then we want to implement as part of this. Because like, for instance, Igarata Lab, we're working on the governance, we're working on the way of like flowing energy into it, not only money, but like actually like real energy, like people, time, knowledge, like all different kinds of wealth and of resources, right? But also, and this is what the conversation we had yesterday with Danilo Lessa and with Rafa Gava, and Rafa Gava, as a coincidence, is working on carbon credits on the blockchain, like as a project. But it is still a big game A, but it's based on carbon credit. I think it's important that we're able to make this different framework in order to actually like support projects that are actually like going in that direction, or helping them actually to understand how they can make the best use of this actual map and understanding of the projects and of the good practices in order to make this. And I think maybe Danilo, because you did not explain yet. Danilo, you're on mute. I think you did not explain yet the format that you were proposing yesterday. I think it's interesting to share it with the group and with Tiberius, Patrick, Hugo, with everybody. I think it would be nice. Danilo? You're
Yes,
on mute.
sorry, someone was talking. And what would you like me to share?
No, to share the model that you were sharing yesterday.
Okay, so
because like I was talking about the region mapping and the fact of like having like a peer-to-peer economy best practice based on the mapping that Tiberius and Patrick were like building, and that were like talking about actually those principles. But how you were like thinking in terms of already, because we're gonna actually like learn through this by experimenting it, like practicing it, like not having just the idea, but actually like having real, like people actually like already exchanging energy within that system.
And I think what before I shared that, one important aspect is for us to have this humbleness of understanding that we are not there as well. We as individuals, at least I don't feel myself as someone who is knowledgeable or have the right concepts to tell exactly what is perfect. I'm in this process, but I'm still working on myself and expanding my perspective and working with my own attachments, I could say. And so it's not like if you tell me to ask me for a perfect solution, I won't be able to tell you because I am not perfect. And I think having this humbleness in this sense, okay, we are doing this, but we are also not there. We are just a little bit more, a little bit less impure, we could say. But it doesn't mean we are 100% pure. It doesn't mean we have the whole spectrum of, and that is like, and when we have that sense, we keep learning, we keep listening, we keep. So I think that's one important aspect that I really want to bring to Igarata, that, okay, the model we're trying to build here is not a perfect model because we are not perfect. So through this model, we are helping model, but we are also working on ourselves. And the model that I was talking with Gava yesterday and with Florian and Vini and Danilo is about the, for the Igarata Labs, what we're going to do. We're going to try to, in a practical way, we're making a DAP lab where we'll distribute um, in a more, we'll allow resources to flow in a, let's say, more intense way than normal structures. That's basically the whole idea. And without having any, and without having equities or someone who owns anything. um, so for Garata Lab, what we're building is we'll have a pool where people will be able to allocate capital, and this capital will be allocated to projects that are proposed by the community. And whatever project that gets this fund, we'll have to, let's say, give back a certain percentage to the pool. So this is the basic structure for this specific not problem, but it's a specific area that we are targeting. And I was talking to Gava yesterday, and we had very deep, interesting talks. And he was telling me that one thing that would definitely help this, because for now we're focusing in distributing two things, because that's our focus on Igarata Labs. One is resources, energy, and two is knowledge and knowledge and technical knowledge and knowledge itself. And he was proposing to me, and we were talking about, okay, the Igarata camp, so that we can bring these skills to people in Brazil, or to people who wouldn't have access to this kind of skill, and even pay them to learn. You were talking about how our school will be different. In schools, you pay to learn. Here, you receive to learn. In the idea of, because we cannot ask them to use their energy now when they they have so much things, so much problem. So that's one of the things that we might do in a further uh, time. uh, the Igarata camp will be a school where you receive to learn. And this is because this is aligned with these two proposals of allowing resources to flow in both ways, like in the monetary way and in the knowledge way. And with that, we'll connect with more people. um, but this is like not a solution, but an experiment that we're trying. I hope that in 2 years, this is not the model we'll be using. I really hope, because it means that we will have evolved. If you're stuck in this in 2 years, I'll be very sad. If this model is the model we're still using in 2 years, I'll be very sad. Because as we go, we will have new ideas, we'll have more people, and then, but uh, but what I was talking to Gava, that the most important thing that we have to have clarity on Garata Labs is what is our purpose, and through having that clarity, we can make the decisions. The decisions doesn't have to be perfect, but they have to be aligned with the purpose. That's the point. We will not try to find the best solution now. And in an infinite universe, how can you say that's the best? Like even in spirituality, they say that if you meditate on one sloka, on one phrase for many lifetimes, there will be no end to what type of enlightenment that one phrase can bring to you. So how can we say that we are able to find the best solution for anything in life? We find the best solution in this current time, or for this current stage that we are at. I don't know if I went too far away from the question, Florian.
No. I think it was very well explained, and and even if it's still complex for me, I've been watching twice our conversation yesterday already. But and I think I think for me the clarity around the purpose is here right now in front of our eyes, like. The clarity of like this idea of wealth transfer is right there, right here. So
we made some evolution on, not for this first test, but for future modeling. We made some evolutions on how we could be basically developing into a more structured DAO. But I think the overall idea is, first, to make the wealth flow, first we need to have the wealth to flow. Like we cannot make something flow, something that we don't have. And once we, and that's
Danilo.
Yeah.
Sorry, just to add something, I would like to invite Tibi and Patrick to better understand the proposal of Garata Labs, right? Because this is an open source proposal. It's a peer-to-peer one too, and it's related to this, related to autonomy of the people at large, and to work in a very net-weaving way, not networking way, with Propose. So to have a boot camp, let's say, in Sensorica, and a community of practice Sensorica, and as well as Good Labs, Patrick. So it would be nice, because if we're talking here about setting up or configuring or giving life, giving birth to ecology of let's say, intertwined initiatives related to DAOs, or related to this organic interactive DAOs that we're talking here about, it would be nice to see you guys experimenting this too, because I know that Tibi is now in the forefront to better understand with the peers in the community of practice of Sensorica, what's the new milestone for Sensorica, right, in the horizon. So, and I know that Patrick is also thinking about that relating to the Good Labs project. So guys, if we're talking here to not only talk, we're talking about walking too. Let's walk together. Let's see how this relates. Let's see how this goes, right? Let's make this experience happen, right? It could, doesn't mean that only me, Florian, and Danilo are proposing. You guys can propose too. You too, Hugo, please, man. And let's make this happen. So let's make this experience happen, because, as I said, we're not here to terrorize, to make any type of theory. We're not here to set up a think tank, right? This doesn't have any trace of academy, or, sorry, Patrick, in the sense that we're doing academy research here. No, we're doing the thing. We have to deal with the water, not only the water, we have to deal with everything, but as a nature perspective, as Hugo says. So let's open ourselves to experiment, to make this happen. And of course, I agree totally with Florian. And the third touchdown that we're going to make next week, please invite a woman. Let's invite all the women around us, not only, and women of all ages, right?
Vamos convidar a
It'll be
Nina.
nice.
There is,
Yeah, certainly.
just wanted to add about Igarata Labs. The reason why the name is Igarata Labs, it's because when Danilo and Gava, they were all the idea was born when they were in the ashram, and then we were talking for a weekend together, and I was telling them, my dad had some land in Igarata, and there's a lot of water. Maybe we could make a base so we could work there. And then it was just an idea, and there's a lot of including there's a lot of water there. Maybe it could be used of in some way. But then and then when I said, okay, now we're starting the DAP lab. At that time was the name DAP lab, and I said, okay, now we're starting the DAP lab, and then I said, okay, what name should we give? And then Danilo said, Igarata Labs. I say, okay, I like it, but why Igarata Labs? Because later we want to make a base on your dad's land. So basically, we already have water for the future, for the to be available for the commons. But for now, we are, and this is something that Gava told me yesterday, and I think it's really interesting. The transition process for those who are not here, who are not in this, because it's a very complete different mindset, and there's a transition process. And even for Igarata Labs, we have this introduction experience that will be different from what people experience, but it will have some similarities that bring safety to them, because they have to feel safe and confident. And as they go, then we say, and how about this? And how about that? How about trying this? For example, one thing that reflects this, for the Igarata Labs, for the first projects, or at least for the first experience with Igarata Labs, we are planning on paying hourly fees or the ways that they're used to. Because I was telling them, okay, why don't we just offer equity or have, you can either have equity or this. And then because he's a very practical, and he's in the front line, and he said, those guys have never thought about equity. Those guys are worried about, okay, how much I will get so I can pay my rent and help my family and this and that. And I said, so first we have to conquer their heart or their trust. So we start with a nice deal, in a sense. Okay, we start with similar to what you're doing, but in a different way. But then later we start to ask, once we have their confidence, we ask, okay, now how about we try, if you want to try to get equity in this process, would you like to try to get a different kind of return in these other projects? So that's the path that we'll be rolling out for the projects in Igarata Labs, in a sense that we'll have an introductory project, and then we'll start to introduce the freedoms and explain the other things that it's aligned with our value. But everything at the same time might be a shock for them, in a sense that, okay, I don't understand this, I don't want to get involved yet, And so this is one thing that this is being pragmatic. This is one of the things that we are trying to do. And then Gava gave me a lot of guidelines of, okay, how can we make Igarata Labs attractable enough to get these good guys, and the guys who would make the Igarata Labs ecosystem strong. And then he was giving me some, okay, we have to have at least 3 months projects, prospects, we need to have this, and he was explaining to me the practical thing that he believes that would make us strong enough to allow them to transit to our side, at least to put 1 foot in our side. And so I think we need to understand also that there are different levels of people, of understanding, of mentality, and then we need to have this. We cannot be okay, this is the shock now, everything, all the water here is for everyone, when you're in this stage, you have this this kind of experience. When you're in the other stage, you have other kind of experience. And they say that this is spirituality. They say that God's unconditional love is manifested as all these different religions and all these different paths that you can have to reach him. Because imagine if only one path is the path. But we are so many people with so many different interests in so many different stages. That's why we have so many kinds of religions, so many in yoga. You say that there's bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, karma yoga, and raja yoga. Jnana yoga is for those who like to think. Bhakti yoga is for those who from the heart, like who feels. Raja yoga is for those mystical yoga, and karma yoga is the working yoga. So the system shouldn't be something exclusive, but something that's have space for everyone to experience from their own path. So this is where we are at right now in Iganta Labs. We'll be building more. We'll be experimenting. I wouldn't say building, but we'll be experimenting more models as we go. But this is where we are at right now.
Hey guys, we have only 5 minutes to end this touchdown, but I would ask if you guys want just to end it, final words, let's say, and end it, or we stretch out for one more, let's say, 1 or 5 minutes or 10, I don't know. It's up to you.
I just wanted to respond, Vinicius, you mentioned kind of this interest in kind of making some connections to Sensorica and Good Labs. And I just kind of wanted to offer maybe some kind of practical steps to making that happen. Speaking for me personally and kind of building on what I said before, a lot of this is still very new to me, to the extent that I'm still, even after, I guess we've invested about 4 hours in creating maps and talking about it, and I still feel pretty lost in turn, like this little kind of tangled web of bubbles is a great metaphor, because that's the level of my understanding right there, is this kind of shifting little map of bubbles. And I'm sure if I kind of examined it and really spent some time there, I'd start to understand. But I was thinking kind of as you guys were talking about these projects and trying for recruitment, I kind of got the image of, walking down the street and you find like a brochure of like a concert that's happening this weekend, right? And you pick it up and you've got like one little page to kind of get that person's interest and have them show up to that concert. And I'm just thinking, like, what would you guys put on one of these tiny little brochures to kind of catch my attention and really kind of communicate the essentials in order to kind of encourage these people to take that first step and just to show up. It could be kind of this mystery, but maybe it's like a little hook that connects to them, right? And so yeah, I guess this is kind of just me soliciting some kind of more condensed presentation of kind of the history that you guys are bringing. I think that would be really helpful. If Florian could give me some Tanya, sorry, I got the thing on. The permissions to add links, I can start kind of adding some links that are relevant to kind of our side of the projects, but also maybe exploring some of the ones. I don't know if other people have permissions and have been adding those links, but I would like to kind of go back through and explore some of these pages also on my own. But yeah, any of that context would be really helpful for me to kind of propose some really concrete steps to bridging our communities.
Thanks, Patrick. So you were okay. So I see here a tendency to kind of clarify and structure, and that would be nice if you could do that, because this is a process, right? I would add also in the same vein some observations. When we talk about wealth, there's different types of wealth, right? And I don't know if it was just a coincidence, but today we touched on material, like resources, natural resources, and not just any natural resource, but the ones that are vital for survival. So in terms of structure, maybe we could think about planning some chapters and take and analyze or think about different types of wealth, and then take a week to reflect on them and see what we can do with them, turn it into our practice, right? Vinny, like you say, it's like we have to do something about it. So this was good, Water. I think it's going to stay with me for the week and think more about what about these vital resources and how can we think about it in this new peer-to-peer light, right? But what's going to be what's other we can go from natural resources to intangibles, like I don't know, social wealth, like your connections, or we can go to something non-physical but tangible, like knowledge. Knowledge as wealth, and how we produce that and distribute that, and how that permeates in society. Danilo, is that how you pronounce Danilo? He was talking about education and spreading the knowledge, and actually incentivizing the spread of knowledge, like paying people to learn. Wow, that's an interesting thought. And one day, if we think about knowledge as wealth, individual or communal or societal, then different models of how he produces and how we spread it. It's a pretty nice topic for discussion. But in terms of structure, maybe we should address like categories, because talking about water and knowledge in the same session might be confusing, because there's such a different worlds apart, right?
Yes. It's a lot of more subtle, right? And I think as a group that is not physically connected, right? Like I cannot send you water from here in a few seconds, but I can send you some piece of knowledge or some contact from here. And in a way, like maybe having structures for this more subtle wealth might be something more pragmatic for us, in a sense, because we don't have a lake in front of us right now to try to manage it, but we have all this subtle wealth that we can share and try to work together how to like you said, is a kind of wealth, and that we can manage already, right? Like it's like a imaginary lake that's in front of everyone. So I would also agree on going to this idea, and the idea of the, like you were saying, I like the idea of connections, because the way that we are thinking of teaching by paying is that we pay, we connect to some mentors, and you learn by being present with projects or doing something that is happening. It is not like the normal method where you learn and by the end of the course what you learned is outdated already. It's like real world practice. And the Gava was telling me that from what he sees, like let's say a zero level, like someone who doesn't have access to not even computers, or at least like a little bit of computer, to fully develop. He says like, okay, we need to have it can't be a one boot camp. It has to be like 2-year projects. Like you have to take care of those for at least 2 years. And said, okay, he said he's willing to do that, but right now it is something that we need to go with a little bit more planning, like one step at a time. But I think that's definitely something that we can start doing. Wealth, subtle wealth flow, we could say subtle wealth flow, in a sense that we let the subtle wealths that we have to flow, and we can start by here. And to let wealth flow, we need the wealth first, and we have this here. So I'll be going because I have only 25 minutes now to have lunch, and I have another meeting. So I hope that it's okay for everyone if I go
Yes,
now, and
it's time.
we keep in touch.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, guys. So that's it. Hugo, sorry, man. We blasted time again. 4 minutes. We're going to try to manage this to be in a frame of 1 hour and a half, but it's so enlightened and it's so rich. So it's almost impossible to 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 be in the time frame of what we.
No, it's fine. This time I prepare myself to have a little bit more space and time, so it is not a big problem. I just want to add something that, of course, I went deep into nature, and I'm kind of trying to bring this perspective into technology, and this is why, without knowing how to code and just from this perspective of being deeply there, I try to put my voice into these kind of conversations with these kind of tools. In my mind, oftentimes also comes this idea of capitalism. So usually when we are fighting something, we lose energy. So what I learned from nature is that it's a minus minus. So when I see capitalism, I think, well, this is what we have. Evolution happens from what reality is, and then it makes some step forward. So it is not just an invention out of nowhere, and then you start something from scratch. I don't think it happens like this. It happens more like, this is what exists, then small improvements, and then another one, and it's over time changing. So we might not be able to see what we are changing in our lifetime, but it might come. But stepping or putting a step for the next people coming into the equation, I think is important, or nature. But if we think about capitalism right now, it is almost like a diabetes. So if it's just about pushing the envelope of what we have, we need to somehow optimize capitalism. So make it flow in a way. So I was thinking about the poster, Patrick, that you are saying. And if you get into nature and all these kind of things, that's why I was appreciating this opportunity. It goes very much into tree hugger, and which is not the case that we are talking about. But if we talk more about like how to make capitalism optimal, how to really enforce it up to its limits. So it is not about like, accumulation and maximization or just competition, but it is more about ecosystems or systems, about collaboration, about it's from linear to ecosystemic, from competitive to collaborative, and from maximization to optimization. I think with those 3 simple rules, we can get into something completely different as a system. And technology helps us to get there. Like with the knowledge that we all shared in between us, it is just mind-blowing, because we can create different sets of technology with some biologists and to inform well our technology, because this is not my case. I'm just a biomimic from business. But when we think really about capitalism, how to make it better, how to improve it in such a way that it will look very primitive, the way that we are managing things right now. So thank you for the opportunity and for being very, very open and giving me the space to open my heart and to express myself. Thank you.
Isn't permaculture a design approach for economic processes, businesses, whatever, right? So, you know, I have the impression that we're rediscovering permaculture in some sense. It's very inspired by nature. It's about regenerative practices, right? Hugo?
I would say that it is amongst many approaches, as it is in the right direction. But for example, in permaculture, when indigenous people, you talk about permaculture, they say, well, we have done it for thousands of years before, right? Or hundreds of years before. So it is one of the approaches that actually lead us to that, but there is no just right answer. This is the part that I like from biology, from biomimicry, that there is no one holding the whole knowledge. It is really something that is emerging. So there is not just one answer, but like a better direction maybe. And permaculture takes us into a better direction for sure. But I would say that an evolution of permaculture will be ecosystems. So how does an ecosystem work?
Yeah, Hugo, I just want to add that in this sense, folks here in Brazil are doing agroforestry in a very permacultural way, where they're producing water, right? Because with agroforestry, we produce water. You produce more water. So, and I'm involved. I know that Florian knows that. I'm involved in a very net weaving way with a lot of micro, let's say, agroforestry producers. And actually, I'm going to invite some of them to be here. And some of them are women too. So it's interesting because, you see, guys, what we're talking, we already are doing, right? And I think that the way that we are doing these gatherings, I don't see this as a meeting. I see this as exploration, right? Where we're touching the concepts, the concepts that we already have, and the synergy between them. But we already envisioning, not only envisioning, but we're already doing it and trying to do it in a very, let's say, harmonic way of what we're doing here together, right? So for me, the things are already happening. You see, Tibi, it's not something that we really going to need a lot of putting parts and extraction and to deep dive in. Okay, we can do that, but we're already doing it. So it would be nice to see you and Patrick and Hugo is already doing the thing, right? The thing that he's doing is making us doing more things in this way. So it would be nice to see this movement comes from you and Patrick too. So if we can, in this micro experiment that we're doing here, if we can do this, we can footprint it, we can blueprint it. Wow, man, this is going to be huge in the sense that we're really doing it. We're not only talking about it, right? And that's the thing. That's for me the main thing that we're doing here. So very nice to hear you, always, as usual, and always.
Thank you, Tiberius. I think if there is this new book of Meldrin Sheldrake that is called Entangled Lives, and it's talking about mycelium. So, for example, if you want to have a role model around there, mycelium is just damn interesting to build technology. We need to build humanity mycelium in the next years, which is somehow internet in way of infrastructure. But what is the functionality of mycelium and how we can extract the biology from there so we can build a technology that behaves more like mycelium? This is where I am mentally right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I also promised to participate to host or co-host one of these forecasts. I failed this week because it was because I'm a little bit anxious with this project. So it's there's a lot of responsibility. It takes time to take off slowly. So I'm always there, making myself available to whoever comes to collaborate on it. But I will find the time. Don't worry. Yes, and through that, building more connections and more mycelium.
So
Yeah,
guys,
sure.
Great. And for the UCAST, and talking about the UCAST, I will be meeting with the people of Threefold next week in Egypt. I'm looking. I'm gathering the list of people that would be there at this workshop, and I was thinking of actually like bringing the UCAST experience to the group. By then, like, because you will have 40 people basically in one place during 5 days.
Yeah.
Lots of them working on the future of computing, education, wealth in a way. So I think it's going to be maybe an interesting forum for that, for the exploration as well.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, a good edit. It's a very compelling story. It talks by different perspectives, and it could be a very immersive experience in a screen way, of course. I received very good comments from the one of Dana, like the other UCAST, because they really can see a different flow. So it might be something that we have to study as a coevolution at some point.
Okay, guys, that's it.
Yep.
Thank you.
I need to run too.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Thanks for your time, guys.
Yeah, let's
Happy
make
Friday.
this. Let's make it. Make it happen. Let's make it. Okay.